Hi there, everybody. My name is Kate. Welcome to my channel, Trinergy Awakens Naturally. I wanted to talk to you today a little bit about some experiences that I've had recently, um, having to do with speaking to elementals, speaking to nature, speaking to mountains, speaking to birds, trees, speaking to anything that carries life in it. Non-human, traditionally, is what I'm working with. As an empath and a spiritualist, a naturalist, a hippie, a freak, whatever you would call me, an intuitive, I find that there are many, many messages in the places where I'm spending most of my time. I live in Colorado Springs and I spend a great deal of time in the Pikes Peak region. So I was going to relate a story today about an experience I had recently that really blew my mind and yet didn't. It seemed so natural, and yet when my human mind took over a little bit too much, it kind of freaked me out a little bit. And then I started to doubt and, go through the whole weird a dog chasing its tail thing with nah, nah. And there's just no way, I could be making stuff up, of course, and yet it just feels so good inside of me that if I'm telling myself a story, then I'm happy to put my thumb in my mouth and tell myself that story every single night because it brings me peace. So, anyhow, here's what's going on. I hike a lot in the area, as I said. I hike a whole lot and I go to different areas. And I've noticed I'm not a native of Colorado. I've only been here 2 years now. And I've noticed that there's a real different vibe depending on where I am and where I'm called and led and inspired to be that particular day. And sometimes it'll be months in between visiting a certain part of the area that I'm pretty much spending most of my time in. It'll be months sometimes, or it'll be just a matter of a couple of days, quick turnaround, and I'll spend a lot of time for maybe a couple months, and then I won't see that area again for 6 months or a year. It's really odd, and I don't dictate that. I just get the inspiration and I know and I go, and that's how it rolls. So I did notice, early on that, wow, there's just a lot of very different energy here. It matters where I am, but I didn't really know why. It wasn't time for me to really investigate that or to know anything too much about it. Let's just start getting into the vibe of, hiking for extended periods and dealing with the literal elements of changing weather, down at the bottom is very different than at the closer to the top. So let's deal with that and get, acclimated to it and get physically engaged with it so that it's not, I don't have to think about the hiking part of it anymore, physically, that I'm conditioned to be there, the altitude, et cetera, no longer bothers me. And I can go, upwards of 10 miles if that's what's necessary. And sometimes it is. And what I discovered about a year ago now, actually, how ironic, about a year ago now, I was up in an area where the Platte River is and came across a tree that very, very much jumped out and spoke to me. And it appeared to be dead. It had been through a fire of some kind, a controlled burn. I don't know. The whole area looked a little rough. And so I was kind of puzzled with how can this tree I don't dispel the idea that the tree would have a message for me. That's not where I'm having trouble. How is this dead tree going to really speak to me? And the tree explained to me, rub a little ash here on your third eye and let's clear this little bugger out, clear that spot right out and open your mind to an energy portal opening up. The root system of the mother tree in that area, the source tree, is still quite alive, and it was very crucial for the message I received, which I won't go into detail right now on that. The message that I received, it was crucial to get it from a burned tree that appeared dead, whether it was actually dead or not. It was crucial for me to get the absolute message that here's what this burned tree represents, and here's the message, and here's how you're going to understand that energy that's moving through living and non-living. Energy is energy. It's everywhere, and everything contains some amount of it. Some of it transmits it better, and some of it's more open to transmit it better. And natural elements generally are far more open to the experience of giving, human connection, some communication. It's the human side of it that generally will poo-poo that or ignore that or not notice it because we're not really trained yet to notice it fully, or we don't remember. Our indigenous peoples absolutely knew, and they know, and they're teaching. However, it's been kind of stomped out of us if we ever did know it. And so it was crucial to learn that energy will mediumship and channel through anything. It really can. It's just a matter of finding what will be symbolically the most helpful for me personally. As I said, in that particular time, I was there to do a release and let go, surrender bye-bye ceremony of some karmic energy. And it was crucial for me to see the dead tree. And I still don't know whether that tree was alive or not, but it sure was alive for the amount of time that I spent with her. She had a whole lot to say. And I suspect that the mother tree in that area is the one that was really speaking to me, and that tree that I was actually connecting and touching wasn't still alive. However, it certainly did channel very much a vibrant and vitally alive energy. So here's the deal that that's when that opened up that experience of being able to understand that energy is, it's everywhere, and everything has a voice. It's just that we often don't open up the dialogue to hear the voice. And so I very much walk into the mountainside, the mountains, the trees, the bees, the whatever it is, walk in with the assumption that I'm open and receptive to hear messages from spirit, from the indigenous peoples, the native wisdom, the shamanism, the animism, the whatever ism it is that would like to speak to me, that's high vibrational and has something to offer me, that I can offer it in return, that we can share some collaborative experience for healing. Because I do very much know when I'm in some of these areas that these are wounded places. These are places where very tragic human intervention has come in and really, done some damage. And also just, the elementals of earth have disrupted things. There's a lot less damage and harm when the mountains have been rearranged due to volcanic activity or something. There's, of course, trauma, if you will. However, that's sustained differently in earth energy than it is when there's human conflict or human intervention, human something. And so I noticed, for instance, when I went to NORAD, that's a very dull and very dead feeling kind of place. I saw no animals. The trees looked a little limp, and it felt very sad to me. It's got a lot of frequency gut stuff going on, a lot of radio activity, microwave activity, frequencies of all kinds in its defense. And, not slamming on NORAD. They have their job. It's just that it affects the land, and that land felt very rigid to me, and kind of locked up. And I've never been back, and decided I'm not going to camp there like I thought I would. I'm going to go somewhere else. And that's fine. I mean, I was good with the land when I left there. That, are you good? And the land said, yeah, we're holding our own. You were just here to learn. And so other places, though, there are a couple of them that are significant. In Canyon City, that's where uranium was really heavily mined, and uranium and radium go together. Thank you, Madame Curie, for what you did with your magnificence and discovering those things. That uranium was actually used in building the atomic weapons that we utilize and have pushed forward today into nuclear understanding. So the mining of that was pretty heavy and very destructive ultimately. And I felt a great sadness for the longest time going into these areas. And I knew there was mining. However, I didn't know what it was. I could see the mountainside is scarred, and it was just never an interest of mine to really do much research about it. And there's also oil well flats there where there's still active mining going on, or active drilling. For oil, and it always just felt a little bit sad. And yet the mountainside is gorgeous. When I walk into some of those areas, I hear the rocks and the minerals just so vibrantly alive. I can feel the vibration, I can feel the pulsing of the life that is actually there. And yet back when that happened, that was opening that door. I wasn't quite ready for the complete message. Is just that we're alive, and we're very, very much vitally alive. Try not to get too stuck in all of the tragedy, and because that area still has some major problems with the runoff and the leftover sludge from the mining. The mines are closed for uranium. However, the people there are still suffering all these generations later, and probably will be. There's active lawsuits and all kinds of things about how that toxic sludge gets dealt with, because just leaving it there is toxic to human health, and it came out of Earth. So I was told that it's an earth-based thing. It's not harming the mountain. However, it's definitely causing problems for human beings in the leftover of all of that ravaging and mining that took place. So then what pull forward to recently, I was at a place called Rampart Reservoir, which is a man-made reservoir, not a problem. And I knew a little bit about the history of this area. I live in the Pikes Peak area, as I said, and the Ute tribe, which includes several different indigenous peoples. The Ute, though they kind of collectively call them, they are ones that came to Pikes Peak and really honored it as being a great place of, sacred worship. It was, let me see, they celebrate Grandfather Moon every morning because it was the first on the Front Range to actually greet the sun. What the Pikes Peak was, and so they were very, very, very much honoring. And they had a name for the mountain. They called it Tava Kav, which is Sun Mountain, and they were very connected to the mountain itself. Only tribal elders, and I'm told that only tribal elders or only shamans, only very specific people were allowed to be on top of Pikes Peak because of that special connection. It was considered kind of a sky bridge to heaven, the bridge between heaven and earth, and so only those that were really cleared for takeoff to do that kind of connection that could honor it properly, we're allowed to do that. Now, of course, humans today, they can go up and do whatever they want to. I had an experience about a year ago that I tried to drive up there, and it was very clear to me that no, you're not going to make that for a variety of reasons. I'm terrified of heights, and driving that was not working. But it was also told to me that that was not the place for you to be that day. You don't have clearance for that. And it doesn't matter what anybody else is doing or has already done, and it's not a good thing or a bad thing. It's just that that's not where you belong. That's not where you belong. So keep your hiney off of there. And I also don't hike in that area. So and I again, it's not a punishment or a you're not good enough to be there. It's a that's not for you. That's not where your work is. That's not where we would like you to be hiking and doing this work. If you're committed to doing work to help the land balance itself and balance yourself with that collaboration that the rocks, minerals, trees, and bees, and all of the natural world can do with you, this co-collaboration or this co-creating and collaboration, we really would like you to go over here instead. It serves better. It's more synergistically attuned to go over here instead. This is where we've got more immediate need, and that's how I play with it. Is I answer those calls. So ultimately, roundabout way we get here, that I went to Rampart Reservoir, as I said, and I've never been there. Like never been there. It just came up randomly on YouTube feed that someone that I follow that puts up recommendations for different hikes, and she finds off the wall places that I aren't on all trails or anywhere else. And so this came up and I went, oh, that's where I'm going today. Cool. And I drove in that area and I couldn't find where it was that she recommended. I couldn't see the trail. So I said, oh, okay, now what? Oh, keep going. You got somewhere else to go. And the place that I ended up going was Rainbow Trail. And I thought that was really curious. Like, oh, rainbow, how wonderful, the Rainbow Bridge, right? That's really fantastic. And I have my dog with me, and he can be a little bit goofy and a little bit, dingy on the trail. Sometimes he wants to run away, and we're working on training. But he can be a little bit goofy and a little bit distracting. And I was getting a little bit irritated, and I just kept hearing, leave it alone. The work that you're doing is the intention to be here to do work in the first place. That might just be enough. Leave it to be enough. It is enough. And be kind. You don't have to understand 1414 every single step. You don't have to consciously be understanding, processing, or manipulating, or controlling, or managing. You don't have to do anything. You're here with the intention to bring healing, to open up the portal of understanding between indigenous wisdom or natural wisdom, however it's coming, wherever it's coming from, and heaven and earth experience, that you're looking to bridge the gap so that there's human contact with the natural world that is opening up a portal of wisdom and understanding, and thus healing, because that's where the ascension process is aided, is by opening up that dialogue with whatever it is that's asking to speak and be heard. And many of the places in the natural world, in my experience here, are very much in need of balancing. Now, they can balance on their own. Earth has her own ability to heal. And so does every human being. Sometimes it's just easier, kinder, and a faster process, though, if we work with energy in such a way with someone else, an energy healer, that we can really balance quicker and get on with our work, and we're not having to take extra steps. If we can get something a little bit more ascended, get better technology and how to manage that energy, then that means that we heal faster. So that's how it was explained to me. And sometimes there, Kate, it's going to be that you're not necessarily hugging the tree or working directly with the tree or speaking directly with the tree. Just let it be. Be with your dog and be in this experience. And it was cold. I was cold. I was noticing that I was cold and thinking at that point, okay, I'm letting it go. And then my mind turned to, wow, what an experience that in these mountains, people were living and they had no car or house, apartment, anything to move into. When they were done, walking around on the land, there wasn't any going into some other place where it was 78 degrees. They, if it was 34, it probably was a little bit warmer in whatever their provisions were. However, they had to act like they were living in the elements because they were. And so I really started to get in touch with the elements, and the elements started speaking and saying, yeah, welcome to this natural woodsy experience where you're going to work with the water a little bit. When I got to the reservoir, now, not when I was on the river, there was nothing there exactly. I just knew, okay, I'm coming into new understanding of different wisdom today. This is wild, cool, and some wind, and then I sat on the beach of this reservoir and let Hondo play, let my dog play, and do his thing. And I was feeling the earth and okay, I get this, I see, I'm understanding more, I'm getting it. And then on the way back, it was so cool because I have not heard of this tribe. I really had not heard of this tribe. And I was, as I said, really kind of blown away and yet not. I mean, one part of my brain was like, yeah, okay, that's of course, of course. And then the other part, that goes, nah, that's nuts. That's just, you've probably heard of this before or something. Doubt, brother Doubt right there. He shouted out, but I was walking back up the river. I took my dog, on the other side of the river, and actually could see the river better. And was watching it, and I just started talking to the river. I'm like, wow, you're so beautiful. That's so neat how you have areas that on the sides of the river, it's all kind of still and, just barely moving. And yet in the middle can be so tumultuous and so busy and, all kinds of activity and churning and bubbling and white, and yet just a little bit to the sides, it's not a very wide river there. That it's barely moving. And then in other areas of this same exact river, it's not tumultuous at all by comparison. Like, that's really cool. And the name, at first I heard Shoni or something like that. And I was like, what? What are you saying? And I thought it was the name of someone that I know. And I thought, I don't want that. No, I don't want that in here. I'm having a great time. I don't want to think about that person. No. And it wasn't the name. It was just close enough that I went, no. And I heard, hey, hold on a second, before you lose your mind and get all human, could you connect back to your, weird stuff again? Okay. We said Shoshone, Shoshone, something like that. And I said, Shoshone? Okay. I said, I've never heard that before. And they said, welcome. We are the river tenders. We're the river keepers. And I said, oh my goodness. Okay. And so we started talking. And again, I won't get into the specifics of the dialogue because it's more important just to understand that the connection being opened up with the natural world and with the elements. They said, just tuck that in, just tuck the name in and you'll remember it. And I was like, what if yeah, you'll remember it. You'll remember it. You always do. You always kind of wonder about, well, what if I forget? And you'll remember. And I did. And I want you to know that I ended up talking to and hugging some trees. I mean, I just felt really inclined to get all up in it, and hug some trees. And I saw some scarring on a few, and it it hurt, it hurt my heart, as goofy as that might sound. It really hurt my heart a little bit that, oh, I wish people would not carve and, do this. And one was struck by lightning, and, that's not, of course, human made. But it hurt a little bit. It's like, oh, I just saw my friend get slapped, or, I saw a friend with, having traction issues, or, you know, it's been in a terrible car wreck or something. It would make me sad. And yet these trees, I could feel them kind of chuckling, and I heard them saying, we're healing. And every time a human opens up their mind and their intention to come in and hear our pain and understand our pain and understand that we are balancing, and that it just helps us so much more. We can help you. You can help us. And this collaboration is where we're headed anyway. That Earth is changing. New Earth is here. And New Earth is forming everywhere, that we can open up these points of contact with humans across the planet to just drop a little seed of understanding and willingness to hear the story of the tree, hear the story of the river, hear the story of the rock, the boulder, the dirt, the whatever it is, the natural world. And it made it easier. It still would be difficult. I have to say, it would still be difficult to see someone that I love hurting. And it was still difficult to look at the tree and say, oh, I wish that name wasn't carved into you. But I really heard the message that it's really okay. Have you been scarred? Have you been harmed? Have you been, left in some situation that you noticed afterwards that you'd been left in a precarious spot? And did you heal? Are you here? Do you have any scars on your body that at the time you thought you were going to die as a result of it? Why, yes, yes, I do. I've got quite a few. We do too. And we're still here. And look at you. You're walking through, talking to us, and those scars don't matter one little bit. Those surgeries, those instances, those incidences, those traumatic events, they don't matter in terms of it's not stopping you from being here. They brought you here so that we can heal, you can heal, and together we learn how to open up those new lines of communication with New Earth. However, they don't stop you from being here. And because they are there, that's what brought you here, whether you knew that or not. And we appreciate you answering the call, to which I, responded very graciously and gratefully that I appreciate you calling to me, because working with these elements and being able to talk to the tree, talk to the rock, talk to the river, talk to the wind, talk to whatever it is that's speaking to me, it always has to be something high vibrational. I don't talk to, dirty stuff or nasty stuff or anything with ugly intention. And so far, I've not found anything in the natural world that has that issue or any negative attachment. Even in NORAD, it wasn't negative attachment. It's just bombarded constantly. And it spends a lot of its time just holding its own. But it's always speaking to me in a very kind way, and it will bring in sometimes that darker, nastier stuff, things that have been very unpleasant, that I've done or that have been done to me, karmic stuff, karmic energy. It can bring that into the conversation. However, it's always a high vibration conversation about it. It's not anything that asks me to do something dark or nasty or ugly. It speaks very, very frankly and very openly, and exposes the wounding on both sides of it, that wounding of tree. And there were a couple of rocks that were just, somebody had cracked them open and things. That wounding, those spots where I make contact with that, they're mirroring to me the wounding within me, and how am I dealing with that? I'm not ever probably going to lose my empathic ability to have great compassion for other people's pain. If I'm feeling a bit of about a tree and a rock, then I'm not going to lose the ability, just because I'm healing my own heart hurt, or pain from past trauma or whatever. Even though that's healing, I still will be able to be feeling for other people and have compassion. It's just that it will not likely, the more that I continue to do this work and see those places of trauma in the natural world and help to balance it, it's likely to just continue to help balance me, balance that. And I feel actually more engaged and more empowered that, wow, I'm making progress. I'm making steps to help balance what has been a very, very imbalanced equation here. In this area specifically, the Native Americans, the indigenous peoples, and they endured in this area a Trail of Tears kind of experience. I don't know what they called it here, I don't remember, but they had their own times where they were asked to leave their lands, their indigenous lands, and they were marched to reservations. So there's a great deal of pain that is harbored with the actual energy of physical people who didn't make it out of those experiences alive. There was a lot of warring, there was a lot of tribal conflict, there was a lot of, white people conflict with the different tribes. I mean, there was a whole lot of death, a whole lot of torture, a whole lot of ways that human beings were very unkind to others, and that the indigenous peoples suffered greatly. Their animals suffered greatly. That, the people who were coming in to take over, the white people, were digging at places that they knew would erase their culture, would erase their identity. They destroyed sacred areas. I mean, they did everything they could to absolutely obliterate the whole entire existence of all of this energy. And so there are places, as that river was explaining to me, the Shoshone, they're a Native American tribe. I'm sorry, I didn't quite bring that around. They are an indigenous tribe, and there are still some today, but they came buzzing through this territory. They're not from here. I think they're from Wyoming, but they suffered a great deal of trauma at the hands of this, area being really slaughtered in mass numbers. And the Ute kind of was, they were kind of, they picked up 6 or 7, maybe 8, I don't know. There was a handful of individual tribes that they just kind of all became the Ute. And the Shoshone were kind of, part of that. They were nomadic and they moved from area to area, chasing weather, so they didn't have to worry about not having a 78-degree teepee to go into. They moved with the weather. But that whole experience of speaking to the river and the river tenders and the river keepers was about that we have experienced great hurt and harm and trauma as human beings. Now, earth energy can transmute that better, because earth is not human. Earth it does not carry human attribute, and it doesn't feel pain the same way. It absolutely is harmed and does experience a painful pain experience. However, it doesn't experience it the same way as human being. However, the people that lived in this area most certainly did and do. And there's some bound up energies. And that's what I discovered in that hike, was that, oh my goodness, I'm working with bound up energy that's a cluster of energy that was traumatized in some way or another. However it happened, I don't need all the details. That's part of it that's irrelevant and important, is just knowing that I can hear screaming and I can, get flashes of stuff, and I can just feel the immense weeping and sorrow and sadness and just the, disrespect and the dishonor, and their sacred land being ripped, them being ripped away from it and just dishonored in so many ways that it caused so much deep pain, and really can be helped immensely by opening up that dialogue, that how can I help release this bound up energy? These are skinless people. They existed here on earth. They're not earth energy. However, they're bound in the earth's energy somehow, some way, within the rocks, within the trees, within the something. They're bound here. They're not able to transmute this on their own, or they could really just, can you help a fella out, and his whole tribe, and so it's been really amazing, and it just sounds so wild. I never would have imagined that that's how that was going. However, it is how it's going, that sometimes I walk in and I can just know that, oh, this is a whole, tribe of energy that's bound here for some reason, and I just need to be present to witness my own pain, because the minute that I can get okay with my own pain, that means I can get okay with the pain of the peoples that are here as well. And I don't see, individual people or anything like that. I just know, and I can feel that presence. And when the prayer is done or the ritual is done or whatever it is, it's different every single time. I bring along whatever I'm asked to, or I pick up along the way. I do what I'm asked to do in those scenarios. And when that is complete, Oftentimes, I will feel a great sense of release and relief. And sometimes I feel nothing at all. And I'll have a major dream of, oh, wow, awareness 3 days later, or I'll get home and look up Shoshone and go, oh, wow. That's wild, and learn more about that and get more intuitive nudges and hits and understandings of it as I'm researching. It's very different, but mostly what I've understood, and what I've been gifted and knowing from these mountain experiences and the nature elements is that nature carries all of the wisdom, all of the indigenous knowledge is, steeped deep within it. And Earth has her own indigenous knowledge. She has her very own energy and her own pulse and her own life force. And combining that with the indigenous knowledge. And then on top of that, we now have, higher knowledge coming from outer sources, that have not been on Earth before, but that can help bridging that heaven and earth experience to bring quicker healing so that we don't have to spend as much earth time, earth days. If we can modernize our spiritual techniques and our spiritual awareness, that can help bring those massive awakenings and releases of bundled up energy in mountain areas, in streams, in rocks, and wherever it is. I personally just happen to be called to spend a lot of time in this area, and that's what I do. However, there are endless places all over the planet that people can be doing that type of work or some type of work that is similar that has nothing to do with nature necessarily. It's just that for me personally, my spiritual practice is very much rooted in the natural world and working with animals and spirit, in a very particular way, and the elements and the elementals. So that's my work. However, there's an endless supply. And so anybody that doesn't quite understand what I do, I don't always understand what other people do. However, I know that when they're plugging in and they're making those vital steps of awareness and understanding, that we're connecting with a whole new earth, literally. We're connecting in a whole new way, that the paradigm is being rewritten and understood as something else. We used to do Earth this old way in the 3D way. And as we move into 5D and ascended consciousness in New Earth, it has to look different. It has to look more futuristic, right? And yet that ancient knowledge, the arcane knowledge, the indigenous wisdom, doesn't just go away. It is married up and coupled with the outer space knowledge, if you will, or the ascended knowledge from the ascended realms. Indigenous knowledge of Earth is indigenous knowledge of Earth. However, it doesn't mean that it can't continue to ascend and ascend and ascend. And it is, and that it is getting its information as well, from a higher source than me or itself even, and it's all on a continuum. It's all in that triangle experience where every bit of the natural world is always ascending to the pinnacle. It's just that it's much further up the food chain on that than we are as human beings typically. And I find that there's so much wisdom that can be had, and it's a matter of slowing down my own mind and slowing down the desire to doubt or to say, oh, that's just ridiculous. And there's too many confirmations, and statistics is a whole science that I'm not going to try to work out in my mind, backwards, the idea that no, statistically, that just, why would you hear that, and then go look it up, 3333, and it's completely resonant with what's going on in your life, what's going on in that area, what's been going on with these different places that you are visiting, and tying in all kinds of themes that it's already 33 minutes. I don't want to go on and on and on. However, everything is a spider web, or network, and everything is connected. What are the chances that that's going to speak to you? It's just a matter that it can sound really crazy based upon, what the majority of the planet is experiencing and doing. And that's okay, because the trailblazers are people that are blazing a trail. If it was already blazed, they wouldn't be called trailblazers. And so the waves of light workers and starseeds and people that, healers of all kinds, energy workers and energy healers and visionaries, whatever you would call that group of little weirdos, um, we're going to experience probably more people who do not understand, don't believe, and think we're crazy than that do. It's a small cluster. However, this is where it's going. And I no longer, it's dishonoring. It's absolutely dishonoring. And it's spitting on the sacred for me to doubt it over and over and over again. And so I continue to work with my own monkey mind and say, yeah, get out, release and let go of doubt, because I have way too much evidence showing me. And it is not any different than somebody that's picking up their wireless, cell phone and calling me. If I were to answer them on a headset, what's the difference? The tree just picked up a wireless connection with you, and you answered the call and said, hey, it's just that we don't really think that way. We're not conditioned yet to think that way or to rethink that way, and to include the newer technologies and the newer understanding of 5D that's coming. Indigenous peoples, they absolutely had a different connection, and they knew. However, they weren't going to stop their ascension process then, even though it was, pretty much stomped out and tried to be stomped out. Even if it had been allowed to continue, it would still be ascending and continuing. Shamanism would look very different today, and it does. It would carry forward all the indigenous knowledge as well as going forward into 5D. It's a breaking away of the matrix, and that's going to look very different than it did 200 years ago, 500 years ago, 2,000 years ago, whatever it is. It's going to continue to ascend and ascend and ascend. So I hope that's made some sense to you. I am so grateful that I have these experiences, and I know they can sound, really wild, and they can sound like, this woman probably needs some help. And my biggest comfort at night, when I lie down at night, is that I sleep like a baby. I never have anxiety or feelings of guilt or shame anymore. And I lived with that, and I lived with a whole bunch of problems with mental health, depression, misdiagnosed bipolar, because none of it made sense until it started to sound like it didn't make sense. When I started speaking to the right sources of information, which didn't include human faces anymore, things started making sense to me. And so, I still find myself battling with 3D sometimes, and battling with the 5D experience or the new earth experience of, nah, that can't be. And that's just the old programming of, old me. And that's okay. That's matrix programming, got to go away now. That there's no time for that, because there's energy that is being released and unbound. Then it's highly important to get on that rainbow trail and provide a sky bridge of understanding, which is one human being making contact with Mother Earth at that point. That's a sky bridge of understanding where many, many, many types of energy can be released if we're open to do the work. And it's just a matter of, are you open and willing to do the work? And yes, I am, because I want to be free. And I want everyone to be free. I want every single energy source that's bound up anywhere on this planet, please, unblock immediately. And I can only help those that are asking for that help, or that want that help and can receive the help, if I'm, unbound enough and free enough to provide it. And so it's a beautiful synergy, and it's a very beautiful way to move throughout my life. And I just find that I'm happier. And that's how I get by on the, statistically speaking, we just wouldn't run into these scenarios, where everything's marrying up perfectly, and you sleep. You don't have any more concern about, shame and guilt and feeling bad about myself and, oh, I'm so dumb. I don't hear that dialogue anymore, because the other dialogue that's coming in is stuff that actually sits in my soul well and nourishes me and brings me that sense of peace and comfort, and just an abundance of overflowing energy. Sometimes is like, yeah, you're right on. It's good. Keep going, keep going. And so in those moments of doubt, in those periods where I'm thinking, nah, this can't be, I'll turn, on a reading or something, or I'll turn on a video, or I'll read something, and there it is. It's a matter of make the connection that it is a connection. And every time any one of those dots of information and light and, willingness is open, confirm, confirm, confirm. And it helps to rebuild the new understanding in the new earth, and to help that interconnectedness, that not everybody's going to be on the same page for quite some time. We have a lot of folks on the earth coming and going and doing a lot of stuff to distract the overall mission of people who are here to bring healing. And it still does not deny the fact that we need healing, and we need it, exponentially, rapidly, and anybody willing to do that. You have my please accept my shine. You have my absolute respect, because it's not easy work sometimes, especially if we're trying to draw other people into it and share the experience. If they look at you like you're nuts, or they disrespect it in some way, it can be very hurtful. So anyway, blah, blah, blah. That's enough. Thank you very much for your time. I hope that you are well. And I hope that whatever you're doing, whatever part of the day you're in, that you're enjoying being in your skin, my friend, and get within, because you're divine. It really is absolutely fine. And it can connect with Mother Nature. It can connect with animals. It can connect with nature elements. It can connect with the four forces and the fifth element. The four elements, you can connect with them. You can connect anywhere that you feel a true connection that feeds your soul. That other stuff, I wouldn't connect so much in that direction. However, it's up to you. Whatever brings you happiness, my friend. Take care of you, and I will see you again next time. Bye, friends.